Welcome back to the Working on the Dad Pod. As always, I am Alex. With me is my co host, Ethan. Thank you guys for joining us. And before we get into the how are yous and the wins and losses, we wanted to actually make a little announcement. So, this is going to be the last episode of the Working on the Dad Pod for this season.
Ooh,
Wanted a little dramatic.
psyched him out.
Yeah, it wasn't the best
No, it
psych
wasn't
out
very good.
that ever existed. But for this season, we are going to take a short break, probably about a month and a half, and we will be back late January, early February. Make sure you are following us on Twitter or X, Threads. On YouTube, we may post a little announcement or something like that. Instagram as well, TikTok, for the latest announcements about when we will be back on the air. But it's going to be late January, early February. Ethan and I were talking. Obviously, there's holidays coming up, and that's not the sole reason, but I think there is the fact that we are busy no matter what time of year. And we actually wanted to make a concerted effort to take a break and come back stronger with some of the things you see and some of the sausage making behind the scenes that you don't see to make sure that we can consistently deliver a product that is even better than what we put out in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ethan, do you have any thoughts to share?
yeah, I mean, we in this inaugural season, something that Alex and I only started concocting in like March and then didn't even start recording until June. I believe this is our 27th episode that we are recording. And we did that on a weekly basis, and we did that in different cadences. Again, Alex mentioned some behind the scenes stuff, but like you said, we want to do this the best we can, not just for you guys, but for ourselves. And we just thought this was a nice time to retool, regroup, rethink, but we wanted to send you guys out with a bang. And so, in honor of the end of the year, in honor of the season finale, tonight's episode is going to be resolutions, not for New Year's specifically, but just resolutions as a dad that we would like reflecting on how all the things we talked about this year on the podcast and what we'd like to do better in the future. And like Alex said, before we get into that, we're going to start you guys off with some wins and losses. I'll go first. We were recording today, Monday, December 4th. And so I got back last week from a 10-day trip to Los Angeles for Thanksgiving. Huge win. Both my daughters had an amazing time with my parents, my brother, my friends. In fact, two of my friends, two of my best friends from growing up, have a daughter about 10 months older than my 4-year-old, and they became fast friends, had a play date, had a second dinner date. So all my daughter could talk about. So excited. And it was like, it's really cool to see cross-country next generation friends. So that was great. I also want to highlight that we did a tour of the school I attended. It's a private school in North Hollywood, California. K through 12. I was a student there from 3rd through 12th. And my daughter really wanted to see Daddy's school. And it was a really fun experience because, it's a pretty small campus despite having like 3 divisions. And we were able to do a walk around within an hour. We left because we didn't want to be part of a school lockdown drill, being trapped there with the entire student body on the football field for 30 minutes. So we got out of there pretty quick before they locked the gates. But that said, it was such a nice walk down memory lane, seeing my elementary school, junior high, high school teachers. Some of them were just like super excited that they didn't know I was coming. I had asked the alumni relations person to let some of them know to look out for me, but some of them I kind of forgot about, to be honest, but was so happy to run into them. And and it was such a good time. Not to mention Thanksgiving was fun. Getting In-N-Out Burger is always an amazing highlight. Some other good food that I had back home that I missed. Overall, excellent trip. Oh, and the Wednesday before Thanksgiving was 80 degrees, so we went to the beach. When we got back here, when we left, it was 50, and when we got back, it was 38. So having consistent holiday trip weather. The lowest I think we got to was like 59, and it averaged like mid 60s or uh, low 70s. So it was a great trip overall. What was your win, man?
Nice. Well, that is awesome to hear. My wife and I actually also did some traveling the week before Thanksgiving. We took our 10-year anniversary to Norway, but that's not actually my win. While that was nice, I mean, you know, we haven't recorded in a little while, so there's been a lot going on
Mm-hmm.
in the Bryant household. But I'm actually going to go with some things that are a little bit more recent than that. Today, or last night, I guess it was. I've got a couple of events here that neither are truly wins or truly losses, but they're kind of a mashup of both. Last night, my daughter's tooth started wiggling.
Tooth Fairy coming.
Yeah, and she knows about it.
Mm.
And so she was wiggling that thing, and great, it's a win. She's growing up. She's 5 years old. I guess its time seems maybe a little earlier than I lost my first tooth, a little earlier than the books say, but hey.
Mm-hmm.
She starts wiggling that thing and she's like, Dad, Tooth Fairy's gonna come. Tooth Fairy's gonna come. I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's the deal. And she goes, I wonder what she's gonna bring me. I'm like, money, money. The Tooth Fairy brings money. And she goes, Tooth Fairy brings money or jewels. I was like, no. Who told you that the Tooth Fairy brings jewels? And she goes, Mimi, which is my mother-in-law. She goes, Mimi said the Tooth Fairy brings diamonds. I'm like, I need to have a conversation with your grandmother right now because I got a crisp George Washington dollar bill and not a diamond.
You know what?
that I'm trying to stick under your pillow.
You know what? What I got to say to that is if Mimi thinks or says that the Tooth Fairy gives
Mimi has
diamonds,
never.
maybe Mimi needs to
Here's the
enlist
kicker.
her own Tooth Fairy
Here's
for
the
this one.
kicker. Here's the kicker. We texted my mother-in-law about this. She says, and I believe her a little bit more than the 5-year-old. She says that she has never once discussed the concept of the Tooth Fairy with my daughter, let alone like this is a woman who takes her up to Cape Cod for 3 weeks during the summer. Every now and then has a sleepover at her house. She's like, why would I put myself in the position where if she lost a tooth at my house, I gotta come up with a diamond? Like this isn't like your parents putting that in your daughter's ear and then sending her back across the country and saying, good luck with that. Like this is a woman who's actively like has her at night on a regular basis and could really bite herself in the butt on that. So yeah, I don't know where she got that, but she started asking me this morning about what the Tooth Fairy brought. She was like, Dad, what did the Tooth Fairy bring you when you were a kid? And I was like, money. It's just money. Like, I need to tell you, like, maybe you will hear of kids at some point somewhere that have gotten something other than money. But like, it's money. The Tooth Fairy just brings money.
Yeah.
It's not like because she's looping the Tooth Fairy in with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. And those are variable gift givers, right? Sure. It's not always the same time after time. And I'm like, I need you to understand that this one's money. So that's been the thing. And I got to tell you, the biggest thing has not been the fight over like, because it's not been a fight, but the whole panic over her thinking she might get diamonds. It is the absolute fear I have of now I have to go in her room silently at night, get the tooth out, put the money in, and not wake up her or her brother.
Yeah, that's.
I got to be honest. That's the scariest part for me.
Tooth Fairy logistics are definitely something I don't look forward to dealing with.
I'm also very impressed because our parents clearly did it, which also gives me confidence that we can do it.
Yeah,
but I very much.
I mean, you're dealing with a top bunk. That seems harder, to be honest.
Eye level. That thing is right there.
True.
That thing is right there, man. I can fit between the slats, pull it out. Here's the thing. My mom had this thing, and maybe this makes it easier, but my mom has this like tooth shaped pillow that she used when I was a kid. It had a little front pocket on it,
Hmm.
right? So it's not just going to be like a tooth hanging free underneath her sleeping pillow.
Sure.
We're going to have her put it in this thing so we can get the pillow out, get the little tooth out and the dollar bill. And you may think, oh, that makes it sound more complicated than just trying to pull a small tooth out of a pillow. But I'm actually more concerned about the tooth falling out of the bed
Yeah.
and being underneath
True.
somewhere else, because there are slats on all the sides of this
Mm,
mattress and her teeth are small.
yeah.
So
Que-
I think that's going to be the play.
Question: when you were a kid, did you have any friends who seemed to have like a very rich tooth fairy?
Yeah, like there were definitely some kids, I don't remember the exact denominations, and I think they went
Hmm.
up as I got older,
Hmm.
as I understood the concept of money. This is something my wife and I were actually talking. We went on a
Hmm.
walk after lunch today. We were discussing the logistics of this, and we came to the conclusion that right now my daughter has no concept of the difference between a $1 bill and a $20 bill.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter what we give her.
So.
So we're going to give her the lowest amount. But I remember like third grade, that time where like maybe you have an allowance and
Hmm.
you're buying things on your own a little bit and you understand the difference. I remember there were definitely some kids that got like 5, 10, $20. And I'd
Yeah.
be like, I got one or two,
Yeah.
right?
So.
I got quarters for my first few teeth or
Mm,
stuff like that,
so I think.
and it went up.
Yeah, I think I got $1 for every tooth, which full mouth. That's pretty. That's like what, $22, like over the course
Yeah, but
of.
not with inflation.
Sure, no, no, no. I mean, yeah. Listen, man, the Tooth Fairy is more like inflation proof than the freaking Costco chicken. All right, like to my knowledge, $1 is $1. But I definitely had a couple friends who got like $20 a tooth, and I was just kind of like, where's your tooth? Like, I
I
need to
I
talk to
I
this Tooth
have a
Fairy.
Sure. And I think logistically that can be an issue
Yeah.
for her and her friends, and she might feel that and, have those kind of conversations. But for me, there's a part of it, and this is a thought that I've had today of like, you're not doing anything
Oh yeah,
here.
no, no, no.
Like
My kid.
your biology is working as it's supposed
Yeah,
to. Congratulations. Here's $20.
yeah,
Like I got $20 for A's on my report cards in high school. Like I got
yeah. You got to
$20
earn
an
it.
A, but it's
Yeah.
like that's an
Yeah,
accomplishment.
yeah,
Your tooth falling out of your head is, I don't know,
yeah. No,
like
no, no.
that's
Don't.
like saying your hair grew.
Yeah, rude.
I don't know. Sorry.
Very rude. I will take $20 the next time my hair grows. It's better than the 30 I spend to get it cut. But yeah, so I would like you to go again because my loss kind of folds into our topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my loss, and as I mentioned, it's not really super win, super loss, but the weekend after Thanksgiving, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we tried potty training my son.
Okay.
And the loss is not that it didn't stick. All right.
Mhm.
This was something that I probably could have seen coming under the best of circumstances because, unlike my daughter, we hadn't been doing the elimination communication
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right. You can go back and listen to our potty training episode for all the details on that. Long story short, I think it made it a lot easier with my daughter. My son, we've got a lot of signs that he's ready for it, right? We've got a lot of signs. He tells us as soon as he's filled up his diaper. He complains when we take the diaper off during this potty training. Diaper, diaper, diaper. He wants it. He understands a little bit of what he's supposed to do. But the weekend after Thanksgiving was an absolute, for lack of a better term, shit show at our house. Not just because we were potty training. It's like we had family in town. My brother-in-law was in town. He came over on Friday. He was watching football. I was actually not off work. So I had my laptop. The rest of my company was off work, but I had just 3 weeks into a job taken a week trip to Norway. So I didn't have any paid time off. I
Mhm.
was in the red. But I'm sitting there, kind of working on my laptop, kind of talking to my brother-in-law, kind of watching football. My daughter's running around. My son's running around with nothing on his bottom half and all that stuff. And so it was a little chaotic. That didn't go well. Saturday, again, we did not plan this very well. Saturday, my daughter had a dance recital. And we were having conversations at the Thanksgiving table about we only got 4 tickets because somebody between me, my wife, my mom, mother in law, father in law, and brother in law, somebody was going to stay behind and watch my son because he couldn't hang at the Last Dance recital and was just climbing from lap to lap. I ended up taking that because we had been pairing it with, in any other circumstance, my brother-in-law and my father-in-law would have been like, we are happy to watch this kid for like 2 hours in a diaper, watching football, whatever. But they didn't want him learning and training at their house, and I understood that. And so it left me not watching my daughter's recital, watching him. And then Sunday, my wife had a ton of work to do. Like she had a live class she had to teach and some other stuff. And for you and any other parent who's ever going to potty train a second kid, let me tell you, having that first kid around also makes it a lot harder.
I bet.
Especially if you've been out of the country for 9 days the week prior and they definitely feel deprived of your attention, right? Both kids do, but it's just like we tried to hype up our daughter, coach her up and say, hey, let's, we need your help on this. We need your help. And we got none of it.
Yeah.
I'm not disappointed in her. It's pretty much what I expected, but I was hoping for the best on that. But it was just this perfect storm of things where we're just like, we did a really terrible job of, in an ideal world, you would want to have as few distractions, commitments, variables, people around as possible to give your focus on that pottying.
No, I remember.
We didn't. And so now we are, we're still doing it part-time at home and waiting until they're out of daycare for the Christmas break to give it another full-fledged try, but like sort of keeping in the system and not switch on, switch off.
Yeah.
But it has been, we got basically nowhere.
Yeah.
Long story short. So that was tough.
Yeah, that's a bummer. And when you do it over the holiday break, are you going to send your daughter to one of the grandparents for like some hangout time and to kind of get her out of the equation?
Yes, and I think that's going to be part of the key is, some experiences that she can have. There's some holiday things that both of our moms individually want to do with her, but like I think they could take or leave my son because he's just too young to like absorb it.
Sure.
Like light displays, different things. Yeah. So I think that's probably the move, is getting him out of the house as much as possible. And that can even be getting her out of the house, excuse me, with one parent, right? Because it's easier with one parent and one kid than it is with two parents and two kids. It just doesn't scale appropriately.
I got you. Yeah. Well,
so yours.
So yesterday, broadly speaking, I just had like a bad, I was in a funk in like the afternoon into the evening, and it made me like not a good dad, not a good husband, and just really like not really part of my family in a positive way. Like at one point I kind of just like got up, walked into the kitchen where we still have like a play mat, and just like laid down on it and like covered my face because I just wanted to like be alone. And that definitely impacted all parties. And it kind of leads into I think I figured out why I was in a bad mood. I think I was like struggling with something from a previous day, but and I feel better now, but it really got me thinking about today's topic. And because yesterday I kind of feel like I displayed an amalgamation of everything, of the three resolutions I really want to work on. And so to kick into the topic, my first resolution as a dad going into the next year and beyond is I really want to work on my short fuse. You know how it is. You work, you got a lot, your wife works, you have responsibilities in the home, you have responsibilities for yourself as a father. You got two kids, like one of them they're both obsessed with each other, and
But it's
eventually,
dangerous.
yeah,
Their
yeah,
obsession can also be dangerous
right,
to each
exactly.
other.
And my issue is that I will find myself annoyed or like having to tell my older daughter not to do something, and then in a completely isolated incident within a fairly like say like few minutes, could be within the hour, she does something else, and I notice myself just getting angrier and having
You're
everything
still
pile,
mad about thing
yeah,
one,
yeah, and like
and you're
piling on.
building that on to
Yeah.
thing two. Oh, I know that feeling.
So I want to work on. So I guess I shouldn't call it short fuse, but work on my compartmentalization when it comes to
Sure.
being a dad and um, treating everything within reason as isolated incidents and not a one long bigger thing. Granted, there are definitely situations where it's one long bigger thing, like she's screaming, hitting, kicking all in like one thing, clearly needs to like have some space. We have started saying things now, and because like my instinct is like my daughter and I are the same person. So when she's like screaming at me, my instinct is to like scream back. So I've been working
Hmm.
consciously on when she's angry, saying, "Do you need a hug or do you need space?" And she will tell me what she needs. And it was actually really funny. She was having a like post Thanksgiving meal meltdown, and
Okay.
my and like she like screamed and she was like, "I need space," and like storms off at my dad's house. And my younger brother, happy uncle, everything's great, they're best friends, like was like,
Oh, I'll
and he's
handle
like, "I
this.
got this," and he starts walking over, and he's like, "Hey," he's got his dog, and she goes, "Uncle name, I need space," and he was like, "Okay," like turned around,
What did you not hear about the
yeah,
first time,
and I was
dear
like,
uncle?
yeah, and I was like, "First time she yelled at you, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, it doesn't feel good." So anyway, I hope everybody could laugh at that, but overall, my goal is to better compartmentalize um, my reactions with my kids. Once the second one's old enough, and really not let individual little things um, act like one big thing. So that's my first
Sure.
resolution.
Yeah, we had that last night. Real quick, it's just like I my daughter was screaming about not wanting to do cleanup. She
Mm-hmm.
had a fairly normal day, but like it was a Sunday. She's at home on Sundays during her brother's nap, guaranteed
Mm-hmm.
every week. She gets screen time during that time, an hour and a half or so. And then as a treat, my wife and I also decided to do a family movie night. And so we
Mm-hmm.
watched a Muppet Christmas Carol. And my wife made hot cocoa. And she had been to church. And after church, there's coffee hour, which also has sweets. And so she got a huge dose of screen time and a huge dose of sugar. And it
Mm-hmm.
should be the surprise of no one that she absolutely melted down in the evening. And I got to say, we didn't handle it
Yeah.
the best. There was a point where I felt myself about to scream back at her and I walked away. I was like, my wife's going to be so much better
Mm-hmm.
at handling this than I am. And I just hear her bellow like 10 seconds after I'm out of the room, "Do it." And I'm like, okay, so it's not just
It's not just
me.
me. Yeah.
This sucks right now. Okay. But yes, like there are times where it is tough and I get that. It was also one of mine. I'm not using this as my resolution because I kind of added more than 3 because I figured that would be one of yours and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to just echo it. But mine, in a similar vein of the attention I pay to my kids, my first one is to spend more time being present with
Oh, that's
them.
one of
And I don't, oh, I'm
mine.
sorry. Uh,
It's
Great
okay.
minds,
Yeah, great minds.
but it is not just existing around them. As we have both discussed plenty, we both spend plenty of time with our kids I would say in relation to the average parent, the median father at least, non-stay-at-home parent. But I find myself in a lot of those situations where I've had a tough day and maybe I want to cover my face on the play mat, that I will watch my kids and make sure they are safe and make sure they are fed, but I will like dive into my phone or do chores that don't have to be done because I'm like, I would rather wash this plate than, subconsciously, than like play a pretend game or chase my son in laps around the couch or whatever it is they're doing. And so I do want to make a conscious effort because the times I do it, this isn't to just do it like I never do it, but do it more. When I do it, and I am present with them, let me be clear. I feel like I'm saying do it a lot, but when I'm more present with them, I notice the joy. I notice their joy, and then it brings me more joy. And it's one of those things that it's a lot like a workout that you don't want to do, but you never feel bad after doing the workout that you didn't want to do in the first place. It's the same thing with being present with your kids, that if you go in with an open mind and dive in with both feet, even if you don't want to, I've never done that and come out regretting it.
Yeah.
Right. There might be little moments that I regret of like, okay, I shouldn't have suggested this game because she's terrible at it.
Right.
But overall, I feel good about it. So that's my resolution, is to make a more conscious effort to dive in with both feet, even when I don't feel like it, because that's going to lead to the best results. That's going to strengthen the relationship and hopefully lead to better communication in the times that aren't playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm the worst offender at it during bedtime. And that's because, I participate in the vice of mobile sports betting, and bedtime tends to coincide with a lot of sports happening. And if I've got like a bet open, I'm like very curious to know what's going on. So, I will. If you go back to an way earlier episode, there was a loss I had where I said I accidentally dropped my phone on my older daughter's face. It's because I was checking a score. So, it happens. But yes, being more present was one of mine. But I will go to another one where one of my resolutions is to be more creative and not always result in a punishment, whether that be a takeaway or of a toy or a treat or a game she likes to play with me, or I'm sorry, a game they like to play with me, because eventually I'm going to be mad at my 15-month-old.
Right. This is a thing for me where like, you were talking about it, and I was having that moment of like, there are definitely things that my son's doing that he's starting to, like say no and run away, and I'm like, all right, I'm giving him the stink eye, and I'm like, all right, you're about to be in the doghouse with your sister right now, because like I know you know what you're doing, so it's coming.
Yeah, and so I want to. And it kind of ties into my compartmentalization and short fuse, but to be less prone to punishment. And, we talked about gentle parenting in the past, and, consequences do have to matter. But like, I find there are times where I'll just be like, look, if you do that again, like, you are losing like your ability to watch Daniel Tiger all weekend. And what does she do? Like, she does the exact same thing I told her not to do, like, right away. And, I know that there is research out there that says, like, saying the word don't and then what you want them not to do is negative, because don't gets their attention, and then all they hear is the command, and then they do it. And I know that after the fact, but in the moment where it's like, do not hit me, like,
you're on your last off.
Yeah, and it's
You've
just
had it.
yeah.
You're at your breaking point.
Right.
Even if you're not raising your voice, it's
Yeah.
just like, I need this to be over. And I feel like I've asked you,
Right.
and now we're here.
Yeah, and I
And you act like any normal human being would to another adult human being. And then you realize I wasn't talking to that type of human being.
Yep. So yeah, I want to veer away from punishment, and I gotta be a little more creative and brainstorm how I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I actually started that after this meltdown that I was talking about last night, where I had to step back in to the batter's box
Mm-hmm.
after my wife exploded. And I was like, okay, maybe I am the person to be handling this right now. And it was still like I was calm. I was on her
Mm-hmm.
level. I was looking in her eye and I asked her nicely and she said no. And I mean, it was like, you just lost a story.
Yep.
Right? You know, the whole
Yep.
bedtime thing of like you lose some stories, and it was a Sunday, which means she was talking to my dad and she got 4 stories. So I
Mm-hmm.
had plenty in the chamber to take
Mm-hmm.
away and not feel guilty about. And so I was just like, you lost 1. And she goes, but I was like, you lost 2. And I was just like, and then I was
Oh
like,
my god.
stop. I had to stop myself because I was like going at it with her and
Mm-hmm.
taking them away. And she kept the 2 that she had. But I made a more conscious effort today, and I'm trying to like get back into a habit of explaining to her at least a little bit of why I need her to stop the thing,
Yeah.
and then asking if she can please do it so she can wrap her head around it. Because a lot of times I get so focused on saying stop with the
Mm-hmm.
intention of I will explain it to you after you stop, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to like sit here and beg and plead and give you a whole thesis. And I'm starting to realize that maybe a short explanation is going to save me from having to ask 5 times,
Mm-hmm.
blowing my fuse, like having a consequence that I don't really want to give out that much anyway. And
Right.
it's like, yeah.
But
So I hear you on
yeah.
that.
And to circle back on what I said earlier, the whole do you need a hug or do you want space um, has been like so far like my like stopgap, my
I'm gonna try
bridge.
it.
Yeah, like my bridge, like at to give myself some give me more time. Like if I just remember, if you say
Sure.
that, like it stops me from getting angrier, and it gives me more time. It gives her more time to let it out, and then maybe we can get to the point where we talk.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when she's acting out like when I'm bathing both the girls in the shower and she's like there I can't give her space. It's a shower. There's like only so
Yeah.
much space and so yeah. All right, what's your second?
So my second, I realized after looking at it, sort of piggybacks on my first, but it's not the same. Um, it's more solo time with each kid, and I don't mean one on two, right? Is this one of yours?
Well, it's you're like taking my backup from me.
Sorry. But when my daughter was about 2.5, this was, it was about a year after COVID had first hit, and there was like an outdoor restaurant that we went to, and I took her on a daddy daughter date, right? It was just a special thing. And we were at a certain point in our lives where it just didn't make a lot of financial sense. We were not eating out hardly
Mhm.
at all, pinching pennies in that particular point in our lives. And I never picked the habit back up.
Mm.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be that. And I'm going to try and get creative. Um, but spending more one-on-one time, I feel like we do a lot of two-on-two time or
Mhm.
one parent with 2 kids, but not a lot of like, or maybe I take her to a birthday party while her brother naps,
Mhm.
right? Or I take her to church last weekend while her brother stays at home and potty trains, but it's not like we are going intentionally to do something together. And so that's what I want, is I want to have that with both my daughter and eventually with my son. I don't know that he's quite at the age where he's going to like get something major
Mhm.
out of it, but I would like to probably start to practice before he necessarily does, right? I would rather start sooner than be like, okay, you're ready. And yeah, so that's my big thing is just, having that one-on-one time and forging their, especially my daughter is old enough to, she's got a heck of a personality, and just like forging those connections and memories that she is absolutely definitely forming now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way. I definitely want to be more conscious of the one-on-one activities with both of them that I could be
Mhm.
doing. But to kind of piggyback off the two that you sniped from me, what I will say is,
I gotta
um,
be honest before you go into this. Like when you gave that face, I was like, "Is this a terrible thing to say?" I don't know
oh
why he's
no,
looking at me like this. Is it
no.
terrible to want to spend one-on-one time? I'm like, "Oh, I
Oh,
took his
you took
idea."
my thing. You took my resolution, man. Um,
Yeah,
so this one is as you've all heard. Usually on Saturdays because my wife works. I've got both the girls, and I'm a man of routine. We do the same thing all the time. It just kind of breaks up the day in a really good way. Um,
sure.
this last Saturday, we deviated from the routine. After ballet class, instead of going through the farmer's market, we went to a birthday party. Birthday party was a great time. But then it was time for naps. Neither of the girls napped. I had no time that was mine during the day. Um, they are both getting older. So I envision this is happening a lot. So my resolution is to have more unscheduled fun things to do with the kids and not be glued to a routine. Um, I need to. I kind of feel badly when I hear from like friends that they're like doing all this like stuff with their kids. Like I'm happy for them. It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's just like oh, we did this weekend, this that weekend, and I would love to do that. Um, but I to for my own sanity and my own management skills, like I need the routine to get me through those Saturdays mostly. And we still have like a routine on Sunday morning, and you know I just need. So my resolution is to come up with more spontaneous, unscheduled activities for my kids.
Yeah, and I would say that I think I think there's I don't want to say there's a limit because that doesn't feel right, but I would also say that every kid is different, and I
Mm-hmm.
know you've heard that, you've preached that, I've heard that, but there are people that I have noticed. We've had friends that have had kids, especially around my daughter's age, where it's like when we're all like first time parents and we're all sort of going through it, some kids are just more adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
They'll grab an hour in the car ride, another hour in the car ride, they're rested, they're ready to go. Some kids won't. Some kids just react to different things different ways. And I think most of the expert opinions and research seems to suggest that those kids that are more adaptable are more anomalies,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think it's one thing that I've tried not to feel bad about when I keep the routine, because the routine also like tends to keep them in a better mood and
Yeah.
keep them happier. And yeah, I think especially with your oldest, my oldest, they are getting to an age where they're, as my daughter is completely out of naps, your daughter barely napping, not never at school, that there is some ability to improvise.
Yeah.
And we've been fortunate enough that our son is the car napper, and he's
Mm-hmm.
actually become kind of adaptable now. So I it's sort of a mixture, right? Where like we'll do some spontaneous things, but we don't try to go crazy. And we have
Right.
some built-in advantages that like spontaneous for us might be like deciding to drive 10 minutes and go to the beach,
Right.
right? And like have a beach day, or you know, go out in the yard and play, like go for a family walk. But I think spontaneous doesn't necessarily have to be like going upstate and picking apples,
Right,
as
right.
one would in like New York, or
So the
going to a theme park.
yeah, when we were at my mom's house in LA, um, you know, my I feel like my daughter spent way too much time on her iPad because
Hmm.
like she would just put it down somewhere in my mom's house and she'd know where she put it and then she'd find it. So I spontaneously was like, "Hey, let's go outside for a minute." And I actually sent you the video. I basically played hula hoop fetch with my daughter, and
Yeah.
what that was my mom's got like a big driveway. There's a gate, so there was no for all you listening, there was no risk of her like running into the street. But I would just push the hula hoop; it would roll. She would chase after it. She'd try to catch it. She'd run it back to me. We were literally playing fetch but rolling, and she's a human and not a dog. And once she played that, that was all she wanted to do. And so, for Hanukkah coming up, I let everybody who wants to get her something know we need a hula hoop. So,
I hear the Tooth Fairy brings those these days.
oh
She's got
really?
a
Yeah.
she's got a whole big bag of gifts. There's diamonds and hula hoops and
Diamonds and hula hoops.
iPads and
Wow.
all sorts of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, crazy. Um,
Um,
yeah.
okay.
So, all right. So that's my three. Your third.
Okay. So my third one, I think, is one of those where if I do X, I will get a lot of Y, and Y being more patience,
Mhm.
less losing my cool. But I want to read more. And I know it doesn't sound like a parenting thing, but it is, because I don't mean like I want to read parenting resources because, like, maybe I'll read some to solve a specific problem, but like carve my eyes out with a spoon if that's like my pleasure reading. Like
Mhm.
that's just, it's not for me. But just reading novels. I when we were in Norway, we were gone for 9 days. I ran through 3 novels in that time,
Wow.
and these weren't like heavy reading, but could be a lot of factors. But I've been reading. I've probably read about 15 or 16 books in the 2023 calendar year, and it goes in fits and spurts. And when I read more, I find that I tend to be calmer. I tend to get to bed a little bit earlier. I tend to be more rested versus like jumping on the computer on, a random night, chatting with you and a bunch of our other friends, watching TV, watching sports, and then sort of losing track of time. Versus like if I'm reading, what ends up happening is I start getting sleepier a little bit earlier. Even if I'm always on my Kindle, but it's got a different sort of lighting system than your typical like laptop or phone. And so I tend to find myself nodding off and going, okay, that's it for the night. I got to go to bed. And I think a lot of those factors actually put me in a better mood. So my goal is to, make a fairly regular habit out of reading. And one thing I do is I have an app from our library called Libby,
Mm-hmm.
and I use it and I always download the Kindle version and the audiobook version. And so like when I'm doing chores, I'm listening to a couple chapters and then I'll sit down and pick up where I left off and like try to figure out how to sync it best I can. But that's my thing because I think it does help me remain calm and more at peace and a little bit more productive me time.
Yeah, I definitely want to read more. I think my best year of reading was actually 2012. I'll never forget. I'm a slow reader, so don't like laugh at the just the numbers. But in 2012, I lost 47 pounds. I listened to 15 books, and I read another five, and that was
Yeah.
um, probably like the most I've read ever. And it's not like in terms of nonfiction and books. Obviously, I spend
Yeah.
way too much time reading about sports and news and all that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but just piggyback off you, one thing I want to do, and like I'm, and it's a loose piggyback. Obviously, I want to read more, but I want to be in a content club. meaning that like once a month, there like someone could choose a book, someone could choose like a season of a show, someone could choose a documentary or a movie, and I just want the variety in the in the
medium.
medium, yes. And so I'd like to maybe I'll start one and see if I can get some interest from our mutual friends. But it's a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not in a club. I think the biggest battle for me was finding stuff that I wanted to read,
Mm-hmm.
right? There have been plenty of things over the years that I have enjoyed reading. Harry Potter is something that comes top of mind.
Yeah.
Just absolutely love that and have reread that series probably 2 times, which pales in comparison to the number of times my wife has read it.
Mm.
But now I needed something new because I felt like every time that I borrowed a book from the library or bought a book or whatever, I always felt compelled to like get like productivity books or
Mm-hmm.
life hack books or like how to be better books, self-improvement. And I just I have about 10 of those still in my Kindle library that are all at like 55%, right? And I just never get through them because like I don't enjoy them, but I felt like that's what I should be reading, that I
Right.
should really be spending my free time figuring out how to be better in my not free time. And I'm like, this sucks. And so now what I'm reading is I have been reading in 2023, and it's the only thing I've read, is the Jack Reacher series of books.
Hmm.
You probably know that from the Tom Cruise movies or the Alan Rickson Amazon TV show, but there were like 27 of them, and I'm a little over like halfway through the series. I actually think I'm on like 18 or 19 now. I may be even further than that with the progress I made in Norway. They are not deep. They are not, it's guy porn, right? He's solving cases as a retired vagrant army military policeman, getting girls, fighting guys. It is not like some deep, nobody's gonna
Sounds
confuse it with Dickens,
sounds kind of like
right?
a American James Bond.
Sure, I,
Yeah.
I think that could be, Americanified in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's just, but it's easy reading, and I'm like, I get more benefit out of this than reading stuff that everybody tells me I'm supposed to read. And so I think there are other series maybe in a similar vein, or maybe other things that I'm like, I'm going to try just like reading what I think I want to read. And
Mhm.
that has made a world of difference to me in my enjoyment of
Yeah.
of actually doing the practice.
Yeah, I mean, I one thing I did many years ago is I went back and I read all of the like classic books that I definitely cliff notes spark noted in high school because
Sure.
I hate being told um, what to read. It like takes the
I
joy out of
hate
it.
having to feel like I have to absorb the content in a certain way so that I can regurgitate it from a test.
Right. So
To
like
very
yeah.
specifically name my gripe, it was not like being told what to read. I guess it was probably that, but it was also like not just read it, not just like enjoy it, but like
Mhm.
feel like you've got to take notes
Yeah.
in your mind of all the things you're reading or on paper of all the things you're reading so the teacher might ask you instead of just like getting caught up in the story.
Yeah, so we both listened to the Until Saturday pod and on the Athletic college football. And Ari Wasserman said on its earlier iteration of the Andy Stable Show and Friends that he believes that the point of college isn't so much like the classes; it's about getting through life. And it reminds me of some of the best advice I ever got was actually from the music teacher at my school. He said, "If you want to do well in any English class, this is what you do." Because we all know you don't want to read the books that they assign you. And I was like, where's this going? And he was like, pick a random page of the assigned reading for that class. Read a paragraph. Know everything about that paragraph and ask a question at the beginning of class before the conversation gets going and say, hey, before we begin, I'd really like to talk about this. And you already know the answer to your question, you just say it. And you have now kicked off the discussion, and the teacher will always remember you did it. And so I tried that. And I did that pretty much all of high school. I cliff noted the rest, did fine, but he was 100% right that if you lead all of the English discussions, that's what they're going to remember.
That's a move. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that my English major wife is gonna sign off on me instilling that in our daughter or our son. But yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Just saying.
well, anyway, should we work on the dad bod?
Yeah. So obviously, I am not happy with where my number is. However, what I am happy about to say is when we
How do I
last.
know you're not happy? What's your number?
Okay, let me tell you. So before we left, before when we last recorded, which at this point was either 3 or 4 weeks ago,
Yeah.
you had not yet gone to Norway. I had not yet gone to California. Thanksgiving was among us. Birthdays, parties, Halloween.
Okay.
Been about 3 weeks since we last recorded. And I only went up 0.8 pounds.
Heck yeah.
When we last recorded I was 191. I'm 191.8 tonight in my standard full nude after shower way for accuracy. And yeah, no, so I am happy that I didn't go as crazy as I thought. Obviously 191.8 is not anywhere near where I want to be, but it honestly could have been a lot worse after California. So
Yeah. I hear that. You know, it is, and I will say this, I always struggle with Monday weigh-ins. We rarely record on a Monday night, or maybe we sometimes do, but I struggle with Monday weigh-ins because I feel like I have more variability. I'm less like locked in on things on Mondays after the weekend, right? And I always do it in the morning. First thing in the morning, get out of bed, I'm in my boxers, I just weigh down. And so last time we weighed in, I was 183.4. This morning, I was 187.4. So 4 pound difference. With all the caveats you mentioned, but here's actually where I'm going with it because I'm not mad. I'm not mad at all. Like, because I found myself in a different place. Because what happened this morning is I woke up, I went to the bathroom, partly because I had to pee, partly because that makes me weigh less, and went to the bathroom and I looked in the mirror. And like I sort of did a double take and I was like, I twisted my body a little bit. I was like, I'm like seeing some ab definition. And so I was feeling really, really good. I'm like, I feel like my body fat is going down, which is my like, yes, like there is like, I want weight to come off on the scale because usually that precedes body fat loss. And then I go and get on the scale and I'm like, if I hadn't like had that affirmation in the mirror, I'd feel a lot worse right now. But like, I feel like I look better than maybe I did when I left for Norway.
Well, muscle weighs more than fat, so you
no,
actually did.
a pound of muscle and a pound of fat actually weigh the same. Just like a pound of feathers and a pound of lead. Muscle is more dense than fat, but
that's what I mean.
But this is the other part of it too, and this is where I want to send the message to like all of our listeners. Part of what I have been doing, right, and you mentioned the muscle component. It's like I don't think I gained 4 pounds of muscle with a week off and Thanksgiving week where I got in like 2 weightlifting workouts. I don't know exactly how to explain the scale math, but the thing that frustrates me is like my weight started at like 189 and now I'm at like 187. And there was a dip in there where I lost a lot of weight before this weigh-in, and my body fat per my scale is like an inverse of the weight, right? Or like matches the weight perfectly, which tells me what I probably already knew, and a lot of smart articles told me before I got a body fat scale, that they're trash at actually measuring body fat, because it would have you believe that like it just completely correlates R squared equals 1 correlation between your weight and your body fat percentage. And I'm like, I just don't buy it. I don't buy it over the months that we've been doing this. And I don't buy it at all based on the way like my clothes fit and the way I look in the mirror. And it's like, it's not some like that I went from like a couch slob to Mr. Olympia. But like I'm like, there's noticeable like I have some small noticeable differences. And it's just like, so for everybody out there that maybe has a body fat scale percentage or body fat percentage scale, like don't live and die by it. Don't live and die by the scale. Use it. It's helpful. And if you're in a situation like Ethan, where let's say you're just in a calorie deficit, but you're not trying to like optimize for protein, you're not doing those kinds of things and weightlifting regularly that's trying to preserve as much muscle mass as possible, potentially gain some muscle mass and just lose body fat. Like I am like very calculated in my approach. Ethan's like, I just want to lose weight. And that's totally fine and totally healthy and totally normal. And like, I don't think it would be a reasonable expectation with your diet and your exercise plan to go, well, I probably gained, a lot of muscle or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But for me, it's very much like, okay, I recognize that I'm putting in the work. I recognize the calories in and the calories out are like, I'm doing a pretty good job here. I didn't do great in Norway. I didn't do great over Thanksgiving. Like, but at the same time, I recognize like the net positive. And I'm just like, part of me wants to throw up my hands and say I'm done with like this weighing myself thing. And the other part of me is like, no, I still have valuable input tool because of the Monday morning thing that I'm also where it's like I had a little bit more sugar and a little bit more salt, a little bit more processed foods from a lot of other places than I normally would. I'm like, I could step on that scale tomorrow and be 185.4. And then all of a sudden I have a drastically different view of in Norway and Thanksgiving that like I gained 2 pounds. Big, right? And so like keep the data points, look at the big picture.
So I'm going to not cite science right now and just cite a theory, because before I left, I had seen my cousin and he was like, I just want to say you're looking pretty good. Or you've been working out? I was talking about it with my wife and I was like, no, so here's what happened. And he was like, okay. And I was like, at my peak performance, my body still knows what that shape looks like. I'm not doing well, so the fat is going to where the muscle used to be. And that's just why I'm shaping out the way I am.
Yeah, that's something. I thought you were going one place, and no, you were saying what I thought you were initially saying. I was like, it's based on science. It's not called like muscle memory, but it's essentially like when you look at Christian Bale would be a prime example, right? Of somebody who can gain and lose a lot of weight, and then all of a sudden he goes from Batman to like scrawny for the Machinist, and then back to Batman shape, and you're like, how in the world, even with all the money and the diets and a personal chef and a personal trainer and all that stuff, does someone do that? And there is the like your body, if you get muscular, strong, jacked, whatever, remembers that in its muscles, and it's easier to get back to that place once you get there with the work put in still, but like it's easier to get back to that shape. That's where I thought you were going. And you were like, no, like I'm just filling out in a way where all my fat makes me look really muscular. Like I've
that's what's happening. It's it's Ethan science right there. It's kind of like, I was never fat. I was always just too sexy for my height. And that's just something I'd like to believe. Yeah.
Well,
anyway, as we mentioned,
that is to continue making this podcast, but make it bigger and better one of our goals as we go into this mid-season or between season hiatus is we're going to try and expand our footprint a little bit. So I would say on that note, if everybody could make their resolution to like, subscribe, comment, turn on notifications on YouTube, subscribe wherever you leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Would love it if it was a 5-star review. That would be super helpful if you think it's 5-star content. And share it with your friends. Find our stuff on social media, our clips. I've had people come up to me and say, "Hey, you came up on my TikTok feed, right?" So definitely.
If you leave a 5-star review and put a question in it, we will always answer that question.
5-star question thing. Yeah, I'm happy to do it for a 5-star review. We just have to be diligent about going and looking at the reviews and checking them for questions.
We will.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us this season. I really appreciate it. Ethan?
Yeah, thank you all for listening. This has been such a fun little side venture to do with you, Alex, and to our dads who we know will listen. Thanks for listening to your kids talk about being dads. We appreciate it. And to everybody else and them, I guess. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2024 for season 2. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for working on the Dad Pod with us. Any resources that we mentioned during the show will be in the show notes. If you have questions, thoughts, or just want to talk with us, the best place is in the comments on YouTube. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Working on the Dad Pod, and on Twitter at Working on Dad Pod. Following and subscribing is always appreciated. Please rate and review us. That helps get the show to new people. And if you know a dad who would enjoy our show, sharing it with them is a huge help to them and us. Have a great week.